Oh my God, that stinks. Moggs has just laid a big fat turd right in his litter box and it flipping stinks. Right, so onto the video. Fried eggs, 3 different ways. Now you might be sitting there thinking,
why the f is he trying to teach us how to fry eggs?
It's easy, right? Exactly. Well, that may be the case for you. You might not need to watch this video, but I urge you to anyway, because you actually might learn something new. But what I'm going to do in this video is fry some eggs 3 different ways, go through the pros and cons of each method, and then at the end I'll tell you which method I think is the best. Right, so let's get on with it. Now, the first thing you need to think about when frying an egg is not the egg itself, but actually the pan. You've got various options out there. You've got cast iron, you've got stainless steel, you've got copper, you've even got granite ware. There's so many different ones that you can buy. For me personally, I think the best pan to use is a non-stick pan. Just a very basic, simple non-stick one. You don't have to go all out and buy something really expensive, just something that's got a nice non-stick coating. Now, the pan to stay away from, in my opinion, is stainless steel. This thing is a nightmare for frying food, especially frying eggs. There's so many variables that you need to make sure are right to get your fried egg done properly. You need to make sure the temperature's right, the food's not too hot or cold, and it just turns into a disaster. You'll end up with egg all stuck to the bottom of the pan, the yolk busts all over the place, and before you know it, you've got scrambled egg. My opinion, stay away from stainless steel, but good non-stick, cast iron is great, ceramic, the granite ware that you can get now is all going to be fine. There's no point me talking about the egg because just make sure you get good ones, nice and fresh, and you'll have a good fried egg. But that's enough of me talking. Get your face down here and we'll start with method number 1. Right, so let's get started. So I've got my egg here, and what I'm going to do is just crack it into a little ramekin. Now what this does, it just kind of ensures that you've not got any bits of shell in there, and you can kind of inspect it a little bit before you fry it off. And I'm just going to show you the ones because I'm going to do this with all 3 methods. Right, so now I'm ready to fry the egg. I've got my pan here, nice and clean, and we're just going to get this on to a medium-ish heat, okay? You don't want it really screaming hot, because what's going to happen is you're going to burn the bottom of the egg and the top's not going to be cooked. And I'm just going to add a touch of sunflower oil. You can use any fat really. You can use lard, you can use vegetable, rapeseed oil, butter even. Just stay away from extra virgin olive oil because it's just going to burn and taste acrid. So just a touch. You really don't need a lot of oil. Just about that much is fine. I'm just going to swirl that around, just get it nice and coated on the bottom of the pan. Now as it starts to heat up, just kind of place your hand just slightly over the pan, and once it starts to feel hot on the palm of your hand, now we can go in with the egg. So just gently plop it in. Here we go. It's a little bit too high. Turn it down just a touch. And with this method, we're going to cook it all the way just on this side. This is the most popular method in your sort of cheap sort of chain pubs, your greasy spoons, because they cook the eggs on what they call a plancha, which is basically just a flat griddle. They cook the eggs in big batches this way. And once I've kind of cooked this up, I'll show you the pros and cons, but we're going to cook it all the way through. You can see that the edges are just starting to cook, but whilst it's frying, what we're going to do is just season it up. So a little bit of pepper and also just a pinch of salt. And if you give the pan a little gentle shake, you can see how well done that yolk is. If you like the yolks well done, obviously leave it longer, but I like mine runny, so I think that is about ready. So I'm going to take this out. Now here is egg number 1. Now the pros of this is you get a lovely golden sunny yolk on top. Now the downside though is because you've cooked it all on one side, what tends to happen is you get a ring of kind of semi-raw snot around the edge, and you can see that some of the white is not fully cooked. It's still a bit wobbly and not very pleasant. This happens to me all the time. Whenever I go to a chain pub, greasy spoon or whatever, I try to avoid getting the fried egg because this is how they cook them, and generally I get really off-put by that snotty white around the edge. Look, you can see it's just not fully cooked at all. Yes, the yolk's lovely and golden and runny. If you're not too bothered by that snotty bit, then obviously this is going to be fine, but it's entirely up to you. We've got a nice bit of crispiness on the bottom there, which I also like. Another thing as well is that when you cook it all on one side, you tend to get a bit of a thick chunk of overcooked egg at the bottom because the heat's going from the bottom only, hence you're going to end up with that sort of disc of solid yolk. So yeah, that is method number 1. We'll move on to method number 2 and see how that turns out. Method 2 then, same again, we've got our pan onto a medium heat, drop of oil, not too much, and again as your hand starts to feel a bit hot, just above that pan we can go in with the egg, plop, And as before, we're going to season it, salt and pepper. Now with this method, what I'm going to do is actually flip it over. That will correct the problem of the kind of egg snot on the first one, but we'll kind of see how this goes. Because the problem with this method is you can run the risk of the egg kind of busting and splitting over the pan. You've got to be confident, okay? That much I know, because I've learned the hard way. So I'm going to cook this around about sort of 90% this way, just until the top of the white just starts to firm up and sets around the edge, and then we're going to flip it over. I'm using a spatula. Now, for goodness sake, make sure you use a plastic or silicone one on a non-stick surface. Don't be an idiot like me and use metal, because you're going to ruin your pan. So if I give this a bit of a jiggle, I can see that the yolk's still runny, the white hasn't quite set, so now I'm going to flip it. Just get your spatula underneath and just be confident, okay? But be careful, because you can bust the yolk and it's all going to spill out there and your fried egg's knackered. And it only needs a couple of seconds, and I'm just going to flip that back over. And that's the egg done. So let's get this out and have a quick look. So what I can immediately tell is that the yolk is cooked, that's fine, but the top of it doesn't look very presentable. It's a bit kind of busted up. Even though it's well cooked, the white is well cooked, got some nice crispy edges. It just doesn't look that appealing. And also you've got to think about that when you flip it over, you run the risk of it busting, and then you've got one very annoyed cook. There's not much overcooked egg yolk on the bottom. It's much softer than the first method. Nice bit of crispy white, which I actually really enjoy. But all round, a fairly good egg. Okay, so on to method 3. Let's get the heat on to that pan. In with a smidgen of oil, just like before. Again, really carefully, just put your hand above your frying pan. That's ready to go. In with our egg. Okay, same as before, just season it with salt and pepper. And here is where this method differs. Now, what I like to add is a good chunk of unsalted butter. And I'll show you why in a second. So add that to the pan. And as the butter melts, what you want to do is just kind of tilt the pan towards you and just spoon it over the whites to start with, just to help set it. Again, give it the wobble test and you'll see that there's lots of uncooked white still around the edge, but that yolk is still nice and runny. And then just spoon around the outside. Don't go on the top of the yolk, because we still want that nice colour. And what that butter's going to do is firstly add flavour, but it's going to set that bit of snotty ring on the outside that we don't like. Give it another wobble test. I can see there's still a bit more sort of white to sort of set just on that side. I think we are there. That is done. So I'm going to get this egg out of the pan and we'll have a closer look. So here it is. This is my preferred method. You've got much more control. You can see that the white is nice and set all the way around, set all on top. And if I bust that yolk open, look how runny and gorgeous that yolk is. No unset white, no raw bits, no bogies, no snotty bits. That is perfect. You have got some slightly overcooked yolk on the bottom, but not as much as the first one. It's well seasoned, it's delicious, and you get a really nice buttery flavour from that basting. And it's a very simple method. You know, I've seen ways where they kind of add a bit of water to the pan, put a lid on, and kind of steam the tops. It just doesn't work for me. This way, you add the butter nice and gently, just take some care with it, drizzle it around the outside. You're going to set that kind of snot ring. You're going to cook the white on the top. You're going to add a bit more flavour, and you're going to end up with a perfect fried egg. Well, there we have it. Fried eggs. Really, really simple. We've done 3 different ways, and we've kind of looked at some of the pros and cons and what I think is the best method. Now, you might have a different way of frying eggs. If you do, let me know in the comments. But listen, guys, this is a kitchen basic tutorial. This isn't for the chef out there. This is designed for the home cook. And for me personally, I think it's actually really important to learn how to fry an egg properly, because you're teaching yourself little skills along the way. You're learning about timings, temperature control, you're learning about basting, seasoning properly. All those little things are going to help you with later dishes. So yes, you might be sitting there going,
oh, it's just a fried egg, Adam. Oh my God, why are you teaching us that?
But listen, right, you might have learned something today. But equally, you might have found this video completely useless. And if you've watched all the way through, thank you very much. But that's on you. That's on you. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed it, please I'm loving it. Please press like. Share it to anyone that you think will find this useful. And of course, leave a comment below, even if it is abuse. Actually, don't comment abuse, because I will ban you. I will. And please remember, if you want to support me, hit that subscribe button. And when you do, make sure you click the bell icon, allow all notifications. That way, when I upload a new video, you get notified. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see your gorgeous faces in the next video. And bye for now. How do you like your eggs in the morning? I like a man with a kiss.